Sometimes you look at someone and you just can't explain why being around them feels wrong. They're polite, always smiling, saying all the right things. And yet, something feels off. Something keeps you from relaxing. It's like being in a windowless room. Everything looks clean, but there's no air to breathe. Or maybe at times you feel it in yourself. You're not lying, not manipulating anyone, and yet it's like you're playing a role. Like you're not living from within, but following some invisible script. As if you've replaced yourself with a version of you that fits. You tell yourself it's nothing, just nerves, just a long day. But deep down, something doesn't add up. But what if this isn't just anxiety or exhaustion? What if it's a signal, something you can't quite see, but your body can feel? Jung believed this strange discomfort is a clue, because when someone plays the nice role for too long, something inside them eventually breaks. But if you manage to stop being nice, everything changes. You become more confident, independent, and eventually whole. Let me show you what that looks like. Imagine a young employee named Tom. He's always smiling, always picking up extra shifts, always saying yes. People love him, they respect him. They see him as the backbone of the team. But a year goes by, and suddenly Tom quits, without warning, out of the blue. He leaves a letter on his desk. In it, accusations, resentment, anger. He feels used. He feels like no one ever really listened to him, that everyone just got used to his quiet compliance. His coworkers are stunned. His manager is baffled, but he never complained about anything. Now, imagine a woman named Anna. She takes care of her partner, always compromises, never asks for anything, never gets angry, never puts herself first. Until one day she explodes, or she leaves for good. No explanations, no drama, she just disappears. Why is this happening? And how do we feel inside when all this happens? Carl Jung faced the same question. And he started to suspect that behind this polite, normal, or even nice exterior, there might be something deeply dangerous hiding in plain sight. It's not just anxiety. It's a quiet, suffocated anger you don't have permission to express. It's the way emotions disrupt the roles we're all expected to play. The silent rule that says, keep it light, keep it easy, or keep it to yourself. We fear that if we show our anger or pain, we'll be rejected. If we say this hurts, we'll be seen as weak. So we freeze, we adapt, we swallow our truth. And with every time we do, we lose touch with who we really are. These are the feelings Jung paid close attention to. He believed the danger isn't in your anger. It's in no longer noticing that you feel anything at all. Let's be honest, why do we do it? Why is it so easy to wear the "I'm okay" mask? It's not just a defense mechanism, it's survival. As children, we were taught, don't be rude, don't get angry, be a good boy, be a good girl. So we learned to hide our feelings. We learned being easy to deal with is safe. Being yourself is a risk. We started to rationalize. Yeah, they hurt me, but they're tired. Sure, I'm angry, but that's wrong, isn't it? This is how we build what Jung called the persona, the social mask we wear to function in society, that role of always being nice. But society isn't a neutral space. And what if its role in all this isn't what we think? Our culture doesn't like messy emotions. Anger, envy, fear, they're labeled negative. We're taught to be positive, soft, harmonious, and the pressure hits hardest if you want to be liked. In relationships, on social media, at work, we start confusing kindness with self-erasure. We're afraid to say no because good people don't get angry. We're afraid to be ourselves because society taught us, be convenient and you'll be accepted. And that's where Jung's warning begins. He wrote, "The most dangerous personality is not the openly aggressive one, but the one who fully identifies with being a nice person." Carl Gustav Jung, student of Freud and in many ways his philosophical rival, psychiatrist, thinker, explorer of the unconscious. He didn't just study the mind. He saw it as a map of the soul, complete with shadows, archetypes, and inner conflict. This wasn't academic for Jung. He'd lived it. In his midlife, after a painful break with Freud, Jung went into what he called a creative illness. He stopped working, stopped teaching, and started diving into dreams, images, visions. For years, he painted strange symbols in a red leather book, now known as the Red Book. To outsiders, he seemed mad. But for Jung, it was a descent into the depths, a way to meet the parts of himself he had denied. He once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But perhaps his deepest insight was this: to be nice does not mean to be whole. Jung introduced the concept of the shadow dash, the part of ourselves we reject, everything we don't want to see in ourselves. Anger, lust, fear, greed gets pushed down. We build the image of the good person, but pressure builds beneath the surface. It's like locking a wild animal in the basement and pretending the house is safe. The more we suppress, the more power that hidden part gains. And yet we convince ourselves, "I'm not like that." We avoid confrontation not because we're peaceful, but because we're terrified of what might come out. We become addicted to approval. We crave peace, but at the cost of our authenticity. But the shadow doesn't disappear just because we ignore it. It waits, it watches, and when it finally emerges, it does so with all the fury of a lifetime of denial. The more someone identifies with being kind and pure, the more dangerous their shadow becomes. It grows, and eventually it breaks through, in outbursts, addictions, control over others. Even in real life, how many times have we seen public figures fall from grace? A kind teacher caught in abuse, a helpful coworker suddenly exploding. These aren't just scandals, they're eruptions of the unintegrated self. If that's true, then we've been fighting the wrong battle, not against who we are, but against who we refuse to be. When we don't recognize the shadow, it begins to live a life of its own. We become passive-aggressive. We're drawn to toxic people because they embody what we deny in ourselves. We punish ourselves for anger, for exhaustion, for real emotion. Even pop culture sees this. In Inside Out, a Pixar film, Joy tries to suppress sadness to keep everything upbeat. But in doing so, she causes the collapse of the child's inner world. Only when sadness is allowed in, fully, does healing begin. The metaphor is simple, but profound. Light alone cannot guide you. You need contrast. You need truth. We smile while seething. We agree while resenting. We pretend not to care when we're breaking inside. We act like everything is fine. Until one day, we don't recognize our own reflection. Our relationships suffer. We lash out at the wrong people, at the wrong time, for the wrong reasons. Or worse, we stop lashing out at all. We go numb. We lose our spontaneity, our sincerity, our joy. Connection becomes performance. Life turns into a script, and real closeness becomes impossible. That's the trap. The mask feels like it's saving us, but in truth, it's the thing that's killing us. We start looking for ways out. Some turn to spirituality and try to stay in the flow. Some dive into self-help and treat their soul like a project. Some become compulsively kind, endlessly positive, always smiling, all to avoid facing the darkness within. We meditate to silence the voice, not to hear it. We repeat affirmations hoping they'll drown out the truth. We say, everything happens for a reason, when what we really mean is, I can't handle the chaos. We think healing means being calm, but sometimes healing means screaming. We keep running toward the light, not realizing we're dragging our shadow behind us like a ghost we refuse to name. It's like cleaning the kitchen while there's a gas leak in the basement. You feel productive, but the real danger is growing, silently. The danger is in what's not being faced. But Jung warned, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In Star Wars, Luke becomes powerful not when he defeats Vader, but when he sees the Vader in himself, the capacity for anger, hate, destruction. He chooses not to suppress it, but to acknowledge it without letting it rule him. This is what Jung meant. The goal isn't victory over the shadow, it's relationship with it. And that brings us to the most dangerous illusion of all. We mistake kindness for cowardice, love for need, humility for self-destruction. We say, I forgive, but we're really just afraid to lose someone. We say, I'm not angry, but we're boiling inside. It's the emotional equivalent of walking on a broken leg and calling it peace. Sooner or later, something snaps. And when it does, people say, "But they were always so calm." And we start telling ourselves we're strong for staying silent. We think we're mature because we don't react. But silence isn't always strength. Sometimes it's fear wearing a halo. We end up becoming the people who say, "I just want peace," while abandoning the war raging inside. And ironically, that's how real violence happens, not in loud screams, but in the quiet buildup of denied truths. And that's how nice people sometimes do terrible things, because their shadow was silent for too long, and finally exploded. We see it in fiction too. In Breaking Bad, Walter White begins as a mild, self-sacrificing man, but under the mask of providing for his family, he releases a fury that had been waiting all along. His downfall wasn't becoming bad. It was never admitting he was angry in the first place. To see this requires a different kind of vision, not from the head, but from within. Picture a frozen lake. It looks smooth, clean, safe, but beneath it, a fracture, and every step could be the one that breaks it. That's what it's like when the shadow is buried. Everything looks fine until it isn't. You smile at dinner, but your stomach churns. You say, "No problem," but your chest tightens. You become so skilled at pretending, you forget what real emotion feels like. You begin to fear your own honesty. And the longer this goes on, the thinner the ice gets. And then something tiny, a look, a word, a moment, shatters it all. Even family dynamics work this way. The child who never caused trouble becomes the adult who can't say what they want. The couple who never argue suddenly break up. Harmony without truth is just pressure with a smile. In the movie Joker, Arthur starts out gentle, smiling, eager to please. He's beaten down, humiliated, and he takes it, until one day, his face can't hold the smile anymore. And we realize something had been building inside him all along, and no one wanted to see it. And now we arrive at the core question. What happens when you live the right way for years, but not the real way? When you believe you're nice, understanding, light, but inside you feel numb, angry, hollow, and you don't know why? It's like following GPS instructions that lead you into a river. On the surface, you're doing everything correctly, but your inner compass is screaming. That scream is the shadow. What if you don't actually know who you are, because for too long you've lived by someone else's rules? You perform politeness instead of feeling connection. You chase harmony instead of truth. You fear being too much or not enough, so you aim for just enough to disappear. And when something finally snaps, you're more surprised than anyone, because you don't recognize the version of you that finally said, "Enough." This is what happens when the shadow takes the wheel. Jung warned, if you don't see your shadow, you don't control it. It controls you. You choose partners, jobs, friends, not from freedom, but from fear, and you call it fate. Think of Frodo in The Lord of the Rings. He carries the ring, a burden of power and temptation, but he doesn't destroy it through strength. In the end, he fails, and Gollum, his shadow-like double, takes it from him. The shadow has a role to play. Deny it, and it returns, through others, through fate, through breakdown. You think you're the one who smiles, but maybe the real you is the one who's tired of pretending. So here's the question. Do you want to be good, or do you want to be alive? The first step is not to fight the shadow, but to admit it. This isn't about giving in to evil. It's about stopping the lies you tell yourself. It's about meeting your inner world with honesty, even when it's ugly. It's about making space for contradictions. You can love someone and still resent them. You can be kind and still want to scream. You can be generous and still feel jealous. And when you can say that out loud, without shame, you begin to reclaim your power. Notice when you fake it, when you swallow pain, when you call it love, but it's really fear of being left. Look inside and say, yes, I can be angry. Yes, I can be selfish. Yes, I have envy, greed, fear. That's all part of me. Jung believed that true strength comes not from purity, but from wholeness. Not from being right or nice, but from being real, from knowing there's both light and darkness inside, and holding them both. not rejecting yourself, but bearing the weight of who you really are. But what does it actually mean to live with your shadow? It's not a one-time realization. It's a way of being, a kind of honesty that cuts through your masks, even the beautiful ones. It means catching yourself in the middle of people-pleasing and pausing. It means letting yourself feel envy without needing to disguise it as just admiration. It means saying, "I'm angry," even when you fear rejection, especially then. And it's terrifying, because when you stop pretending to be nice, you don't know who's going to stay. Maybe people liked the mask, maybe you liked it too. But Jung warned us, that mask, the persona, was never meant to be your soul. It was only a tool, and if you wear it too long, you forget who's underneath. You see this moment in Good Will Hunting. Will is brilliant, kind, clever, but his intelligence is a wall. He pushes people away with charm, sarcasm, anger. It's only when Sean, Robin Williams' character, and says, "It's not your fault," again and again, that Will finally breaks. Not because he's weak, but because he spent his whole life hiding his pain behind being smart and tough. That scene is shadow work, not heroic, just honest and devastating. The shadow isn't just rage and cruelty, it's also sadness, loneliness, grief, all the parts of you weren't allowed to feel. And sometimes it's joy. Strange, isn't it? That even joy can become part of the shadow. But when you're taught to be small, to be quiet, to not take up space, your aliveness, your playfulness, your boldness all get buried. You begin to feel guilty just for being yourself. That too must return. So integration isn't about becoming darker, it's about becoming whole, about learning to carry what was hidden without letting it control you. And there's no finish line, no moment where you finally arrive. But something does shift. You become more honest in your love, more present in your anger, more grounded in your no. You become less afraid of falling apart, because now you know, even if you do, there's someone real beneath the pieces. Someone who's not just good, but alive. And that leads us here to the final choice. You can be good, you can be nice, or you can be real. Only one of those will save you. Because being nice is often just code for being harmless, for being digestible, for being exactly who others expect, not who you are. But being real, that's messy, that's unpredictable. It's also powerful. When you're real, you cry when you're supposed to. You say no when it hurts. You tell the truth, even if your voice shakes. And you don't betray yourself just to be liked. Remember Elsa in Frozen? She spends her whole life hiding her power, trying to be the good girl, until she finally lets it go. That moment, singing on the mountain, no longer afraid, that's not about rebellion, it's about release. She's not becoming dangerous, she's becoming whole. The same happens in the pursuit of happiness. Chris Gardner doesn't stay positive to please anyone. He fights, he suffers, he breaks, but he never lies to himself. And that's what carries him through. That's what saves him. To be real doesn't mean to be selfish or cruel. It means being true. It means holding your shadow in one hand and your values in the other. It means saying, "This is all of me. I won't cut parts out just to fit." Yes, some people will leave. Yes, some will judge. But the ones who stay, they'll see you. And you'll finally see yourself. Not as someone trying to live up to an image, but as someone finally breathing without apology. If this video resonates with you, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever felt anger when you needed to be nice? Has anyone ever said you should be more kind and convenient to others? Let's talk about it together. If you want to keep exploring insights from the greatest minds, hit the subscribe button and watch the next video. Let's learn together, because something important is coming in the next episode.